Hello everyone, welcome to SJEC online classes. Myself Anita Pandey, your history teacher. In this video, we will study about the chapter The Mauryan Empire. Before returning home, Alexander placed his newly conquered area in the northwest under ministers appointed by him. This minister ensured and continued the Greek rule over northern western India for a long time. The past Nanda ruler Dhananand was called so on account of the vast treasure accumulated by him through excessive taxation. Dhananand insulted Chanakya in his court. Chanakya vowed a revenge his insult by bringing about the destruction of house of Nanda. Chanakya trained and inspired Chandragupta to free northwest India from the Greek rule as well as overthrew the Nanda. Thus began the emergence of the Mauryan Empire. Next, we move to the main historical sources of the Mauryan Empire. First, literary source. Megasthenes' account. Megasthenes was a Greek historian who lived as a representative of Seleucus Nectar in the court of Chandragupta Maurya for about 5 years. He wrote a book named Indica, in which he has given a detailed description of Mauryan administration and Indian society. Next was the Kautilya's Arthashastra. The Arthashastra by Kautilya, the chief advisor of Chandragupta Maurya, is another important source which throws a good deal of light on the Mauryan period. As Kautilya was directly concerned with the Mauryan government, his book gives very valuable information regarding the political condition of India during the Mauryan period and the Mauryan administration. Arthashastra is a unique book on the subject of politics and art of government in a literature of ancient India. Next was the Mudra Rakshaka. It was the political drama written by Vishakha Datta in the 15th century. In the Gupta period is another important work on the Mauryan period. It describes in detail as to how Chandragupta Maurya got the help of Kautilya and overthrew the Nanda dynasty. Next, we move to the literary book written by the Jainism and Buddhism text. From the Jain traditional or the text was we come to know as to how Chandragupta Maurya towards the end of his reign converted himself into Jainism and um, uh, um, left his throne. The Buddhist text provide us with valuable information about Ashoka and the steps taken by him for the spread of Buddhism. Next literary work was Puranas. Historians have excerpted valuable information from the Puranas regarding the Mauryans. This precedes Nanda and their successors, the Sangas and the Ardharas. Next, we move to the archaeological sources. In the archaeological sources, there was a work like inscriptions, Edict of Ashoka, Sanchi Stupa, work of art. Work of art from the different work of art of the Mauryan period, just as the stupas, viharas, pillars, and caves, we can come from an idea of the Mauryan art, architecture, sculpture, art of polishing, art of engineering. Inscriptions. Inscriptions found on pillars, rocks, and caves form an important source of information about the Mauryan dynasty, especially the time of Ashoka. From this inscription, we come to know a good deal about Ashoka's dharma, administration, character, and other things. Not only this, they also help us a lot in forming an idea about the standard of education in those days and common language that was used in the Mauryan period. Edict of Ashoka. An edict is an decree issued by a king or a official order issued by the king. The Edict of Ashoka form a very important source of Mauryan history. These edicts are inscribed on rocks and pillars throughout the country and include 14 rock edicts, 7 pillars edicts, and number of minor rock edicts. Next, we move to the Sanchi Stupa. A stupa represents the spiritual body of Buddha containing his relics, such as hair, teeth, or bones. A casket containing these relics is placed at the base of the stupa. Sanchi stupa was built around 3rd century BC by Ashoka at Sanchi. uh, Ashoka at Sanchi near Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. It has 4 gateways in 4 directions. These gateways have carved panels depicting events from the life of the Buddha and some Jataka's tales. Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of Mauryan Empire, is regarded as the great ruler in the history of India. Very little is known about his early life. As an ambitious young man, Chandragupta is said to have even joined the Greek army under Alexander to know their techniques of warfare. But this ultimate success was due to the wise counselor and trainer that he received from a very able Brahmin scholar, Chanakya or Kautilya. Later, he became his chief advisor. Now we move to the Chandragupta Maurya's conquest. Chandragupta, with the help of Chanakya, gathered a small army and captured Punjab after Alexander had left the province. He drove the Greek out after strengthening his position in the Punjab. He raised a powerful army to invade the kingdom of Magad. Magad in those days was ruled by Nanda ruler who had become quite unpopular among the people because of their greed. So an easy victory fell on the arms of Chandragupta because the undisputed rule of North India. Next, we move to the war with Seleucus. Seleucus was a Greek general of Alexander who became the ruler of North India and from Asia Minor to the Indus. He wanted to recover the Indian territories which have now become a part of the Mauryan Empire. It brought him in a conflict with Chandragupta Maurya, who defeated the Greek general and consequently he had to surrender not only the 4 provinces of his rule, but also had to give his daughter in marriage to the Mauryan Empire. Next, we move to the Mauryan administration. It was divided into central government, civil government, military administration. First, central government. The Mauryan ruler was no doubt an autocrat, but he looked after the welfare of the people. The king was the highest authority of the state. He was, however, assisted by a council of ministers or mantri parishad. His ministers were wise and loyal to the king. Each minister was individually responsible for his department. Next, we move to the provisional government. The whole empire was divided into four provinces of Magad, Takshila, Ujjain, and Swarnagiri. The administration of the district was looked after by the minister and that of the village by the headman called the Gramikas or Graminis. Next, we move to the revenue system. The land revenue was the chief source of income. It varied from one sixth to one fourth of the total produce. Taxes were also collected from mines, forests, cattle, tolls, tax, and personal taxes. The money was usually spent on public work like road, hospitals, irrigation, etc. Military administration. Chandragupta kept a huge army of 6 lakhs infantry, 30,000 cavalry, 9,000 elephants, and 8,000 chariots. It was necessary to maintain such a large army to look after so big an empire. Besides, there was an efficient network of spy systems spread all over the empire and in the neighboring state. This spy kept an emperor information about all the important matters. Next, we move to the civics or civil administration of Patliputra. Patliputra was the capital of the Mauryas. It was a beautiful city surrounded by a deep moats and high walls, including the king's palace, were made of wood. The king's palace was magnificent and he lived in luxury. The administration of the city was looked after by a committee of 30 members. This committee was further divided into six boards. The first board was concerned with industries and art. Second, the second board looked after the need of the foreigners. The third board recorded the birth and the death. The fourth board regulated the trade and commerce and checked weight and measures. The fifth board ensured the quality of the manufactured articles. The sixth board collected tax on sold goods at the rate of 10% of their price. This committee also took steps to ensure health and sanitation and built hospital, roads, park, schools and temples. Next we move to the Bindusara, son of Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta Maurya ruled for 23 years. And after that, according to some Jain texts, he left the throne for his son Bindusar and became a Jain ascetic. Some historians gives the credit of extending the Mauryan Empire in the south to Bindusara. Thus, with the exception of the extreme south, the Mauryan Empire included almost the whole of India under Bindusara. Like his father, Bindusara maintained friendly relations with the Greeks and exchanged ambassadors. The successor of Seleucus, according to the Chinese text, he had a large family. He ruled for 25 years and died in 273 BCE. Next, we move to Ashoka. Ashoka is regarded as one of the most popular ruler of ancient India. He belonged to the Mauryan dynasty. He was born in about 302 BC. During his father's regime, he served as the governor of Takshila and Ujjain and had thus got the enough experience of administration. He succeeded to the throne after his father's death in 273 BCE. The Kalinga War. The conquest of Kalinga by Ashoka was perhaps the most important event of his reign. Ashoka had inherited a vast empire from his grandfather and father, but Kalinga, the modern province of Orissa and uh, Ganjam district, was not yet in his empire. Ashoka, who believed in the traditional policy of conquest and aggression, could not tolerate the existence of an independent state on the border of this empire. Thus, Ashoka invaded this territory in 261 BC. The people of Kalinga offered thought resistance but they were unlimitedly overpowerful by the mighty Mauryan Empire. From Rock Edict 13, we come to know that the Kalinga people suffered much and as many as 150,000 people were captured, 100,000 were slain, and many times that number died. Death and destruction in Kalinga made Ashoka sad and unhappy. It became a turning point in his life, and he became the first monarch in world history to become and take the path of war and violence. For the next 30 years that he ruled, he never went to war and became an follower of Buddha. Upengupta, who was his guru, introduced him to Buddhism. Therefore, Ashoka gave up his ambition of Digvijaya or victory in all direction and pursued a policy of Dharma Vijaya. Next, we move to the extent of Ashoka Empire. Ashoka Empire was a very vast one. It extended from the Brahmaputra in the east to the Hindu Kush in the northwest and the Arabian Sea in the west, and from the Himalayas in the north to the river Pennar in the south. Some portions of Nepal and Kashmir also formed a part of Ashoka Empire. Outside India, it included the provinces of Kabul, Herat, and Kandahar. It was thus the biggest empire in ancient India. Next, we come to the topic Ashoka Dharma or Dhamma. Though Ashoka himself followed Buddhism, he preached only good things of human conduct. His Dhamma, which is the Prakrit form of the Sanskrit word dharma, was not dogmatic but a set of moral principles. Now we come to the main principles of Ashoka Dhamma or Dharma. First, respect of elders. In one of his edict, Ashoka says that we must be tender to the father and the mother. In the same way, the student must show respect to the teachers. Second, proper treatment of youngsters. Elders, superior, and the officer should be polite and kind to their youngsters, inferiors, and subordinated. Third, ahimsa. This was the main principle of Buddhism. Ashoka not only forbade the slaughtering or killing of the animal, but himself gave up hunting and flesh eating or the sacrifice of animal in yajnas. Fourth, uh, tolerance. In one of his edit, Ashoka says that there should be a honor to one's own set or a combination of another set. Other set should also be honored. Next, truthfulness. A man A man should speak the truth at all time. It is better than various religious ceremonies. Charity. One should give education to the illiterate, money to the poor, and knowledge of the Dharma to everyone. Ashoka and Buddhism. Ashoka occupies a high place in the history of Buddhism. In the beginning, he led a comfortable and luxurious life and indulged in all sort of luxury. But the suffering and bloodshed of the Kalinga War of 261 BC brought about a great change in his life, and he became a follower of Buddhism. He now devoted all his time, energy, and vast resources for the spread of Buddhism in and outside India. Next, we move to propagation of Dharma or Dhamma. Ashoka took these measures for the propagation of Dhamma. First, Ashoka inscribed them on the rocks and pillars. Second, he appointed new class of officers known as Dhamma Mahamantras. Their main aim was to raise the moral of the people and also to supervise the action of the state officers. He had instructed his officers to make the life of citizen happy and prosperous. Ashoka himself undertook tours to see that his orders were fully obeyed. This was an ideal system of administration which brought peace and made the people happy and prosperous. Third, he sent his son Mahendra and daughter Sangamitra to propagate Buddhism in Ceylon, now we call it Sri Lanka, and in Western countries. Impact of Dhamma on Ashoka's imperial policy. First, religious unit. People belonging to different religion followed their emperor policy of religious tolerance. Second, moral values. People started living a moral life under the influence of the dharma or dhamma. Third, end of crime. The policy of ahimsa almost put an end to activities like theft, crimes, murder, etc. It did not have a great moral impact on people. Fourth, public welfare. With the policy of conquest and war having come to an end, Ashoka Dhamma helped officials to undertake public welfare. The public work schemes. This resulted in prosperity and helped people lead a peaceful life. Emperor Ashoka ruled for about 40 years. He led great stress on the people welfare. He built various roads, planted trees on its post site. He opened a large number of hospitals for both men and animals. He had various well dug for the welfare of the people. He had various rest house built for the travelers. After his death, the Mauryan dynasty lasted for about another 50 years. He was one of the pioneers of the humanitarian value.